I had been planning this for weeks, my first astral projection, guided by meditation and isolation, inside my small apartment in Vancouver's Gastown neighbourhood. Autumn had draped the city in damp, grey fog. The cobblestone streets glistened with drizzle, street lamps casting soft halos through mist that smelled faintly of the ocean. I lived alone, a freelance graphic designer, and had finally carved a night for myself. No screens, no calls, no distractions. It began as soon as I settled onto the floor of my living room. Candles flickered, incense burning low, a soft hum of the kettle still warm beside me. I lay flat, eyes closed, focusing on the rhythm of my own breathing. In, out, in, out. Slowly, the tension in my shoulders melted, the ache in my lower back fading into nothing. And then the pressure started, not sudden, not violent, but subtle, a slow tightening across my chest. My heart began to race, each beat resonating far too loud in my ears. The room's muted glow shifted, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. I willed myself to stay calm, to focus on the separation I had read about so many times. My consciousness began to lift, rising above my body. I could feel my hands resting on my thighs, the rough texture of the carpet, my breath against my closed lips, but my awareness stretched beyond. I hovered a few feet above myself, looking down, and for a moment, the sensation was pure exhilaration. This was it. I was leaving. Then the edges of the room blurred. The furniture sharpened and then softened, the candles flickering in impossible patterns, as though their flames were being observed by another presence. A chill slid down my spine. I knew immediately I wasn't alone. From the corner of the apartment near the window, a shadow coalesced. It wasn't solid, more a condensation of darkness, dense and curling like smoke, but with intention. I wanted to retreat, to pull back into my body, but something urged me forward, an adrenaline-soaked curiosity. I moved toward it, gliding over the floor. The shadow seemed to twist, shifting its shape as I approached. My pulse thudded wildly, every beat like a hammer in my skull. Then, just as I reached what should have been its center, it surged upward, stretching into the ceiling. The air, or whatever I was moving through, vibrated, resonating in a low, horrifying tone. I jerked backward, propelled by fear, and the floor beneath me seemed to vanish. I was floating beyond the walls now, into the misted Vancouver night. The city below was obscured in fog, the neon of storefronts diffused into soft glows. The harbour shimmered dimly through the haze, and the sound of distant seagulls and car engines felt unnervingly muted. The shadow followed. It moved in silence, its shape ever shifting, but its attention was fixed on me. My mind raced. I remembered reading that fear can anchor you, can keep you tethered. So I forced myself to breathe, to focus on the sensation of being in my own body, even if I wasn't yet fully returned. I soared above the rooftops, past chimneys, past the brick and metal textures of the Gastown buildings. I looked down, catching glimpses of people walking beneath umbrellas. Streetlight halos flickered on wet stones. It should have been beautiful, but it wasn't. The shadow followed, stretching impossibly across the spaces between rooftops, closer than I wanted. Then came the first sound. Not a voice, not a scream, but a scraping, like nails dragged along concrete. My stomach clenched and I spun, searching for the source. It wasn't behind me. It was beneath me. A trapdoor, a metal grate, faintly vibrating under some unseen weight. I dove. The moment my awareness passed through it, the city vanished. I was inside a dark, enclosed space, narrow and suffocating, with low ceilings and brick walls slick with moisture. It smelled of mould and salt. I recognized it instantly. The old storm tunnels beneath Vancouver, places I had once explored as a teenager with a flashlight and a sense of reckless adventure. Somehow, here, in this out-of-body state, they were real, but magnified, impossible, stretched beyond proportion. I followed the narrow corridor, shadows clinging to every corner. The scraping sound intensified, echoing through the tunnel like metal on stone. Then, movement. Something emerged from the darkness. A tall form, humanoid in outline, but impossibly thin, its edges dissolving into the air around it. Its presence hit me with a wave of fear I had never experienced awake. It wasn't trying to harm me, yet, but the intent was there. It was testing me, probing the limits of my own awareness. I forced myself to step forward. I could see the faint outline of its head turned slightly toward me. The darkness that composed it seemed to absorb the faint torchlight, creating small voids that threatened to pull at my mind. I remembered the breathing exercises, the grounding techniques, focusing on my heartbeat, my chest, my skin. Even though I wasn't touching anything, I imagined the sensation of my own body, of reality, of solidity. The shadow advanced, gliding silently. I could feel it brushing against my perception, a subtle tug on my awareness. Then came the first flash. Memories not mine. Faces, events, emotions. It wasn't violent, it was probing, learning, intrusive. I stumbled back mentally, nearly losing myself in the tide of sensation until I focused again, anchoring to the rhythm of my own thoughts. I realized something critical. This entity wasn't malicious. It was searching, incomplete, like a presence that had been fragmented. Adrenaline surged again, not in panic, but in clarity. I reached out mentally, offering awareness, a kind of recognition. My body in the apartment twitched, almost imperceptibly. I imagined a warm tether stretching from me to it, a thread of empathy. For several moments nothing happened. Then, slowly, the shadow paused. Its edges softened. The scraping ceased. I felt its awareness brush mine, not threatening but hesitant. I focused on the city above, on the harbour, the fog, the distant hum of the streetcars. I imagined myself back in my apartment, the warm scent of incense, the light flickering across the carpet. Gradually, the shadow dissipated, dissolving into the brick walls and the air of the tunnel. I felt a pull backward, toward my body, gentle but insistent. My consciousness swept through the walls of the tunnel, the rooftops, the fog, and finally, back into the room. I opened my eyes. The candles burned low, the incense smoke curling lazily into the air. The apartment felt warm, grounded, solid. I lay there for several minutes, shaking but not from fear, from relief, from understanding. Something had been there, something unformed and searching, but the encounter hadn't ended in chaos. It had ended in recognition, in acknowledgement. I sat up and looked around. My apartment felt different now, not just physically, but emotionally. The weight that had pressed against my chest earlier was gone. The city outside, grey and rainy as it was, felt alive and protective rather than menacing. I felt connected, not only to myself, but to something larger, something that had been fragmentary and now seemed whole. I spent the rest of the night reflecting, journaling every sensation, every movement, every pulse of adrenaline and fear. By the time dawn broke over the harbour, the fog lifting to reveal the sun glinting off the water, I felt lighter than I had in months, freer in a way I could not have imagined before this night. And when I finally stepped onto the balcony to breathe in the cold, crisp morning air, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The city hummed beneath me, the gulls cried over the water and the streets glistened with rain. I knew I had returned fully, not just to my body, but to myself. For the first time, I understood the thin line between fear and understanding. And in that understanding, I found a strange, beautiful relief.